Hello everyone, I am the Desert Gardener, and today we're going to be planting pepper seeds, and we're going to be using what's called a pre-soak method. Now if you've never done this method before, I highly recommend it. It really improved my germination rate. I went from about 10% to about 99% success, so I highly recommend it. So I've got my tea, let's get started. Now the first step is of course to order seeds, and I highly recommend you keep your seeds in the refrigerator. It's important that they stay cool, dry, and in the dark. This will definitely help with your germination rate. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a cup of chamomile tea. Now after the tea bag has steeped for at least 5 minutes, we're going to take it out and we're going to put it in a different container. Preferably one with a lid. Now we're going to take some of the hot water that we use to make our tea, and we're going to put just a couple inches into our container here. Then we're going to take our handy thermometer and we're going to check the temperature. Now we want this to be right around 80 degrees. Now this is definitely a little too hot, so I'm going to put some cool water in it to cool it down a bit. Okay, so now it's registering 80 degrees, which is perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our seeds. Now I have about 15 lunchbox pepper seeds here. It's really a great sweet pepper, grows great in the desert. And I even sell them on eBay if you're interested in getting some of your own. We're just going to take them and dump them in to our diluted tea mixture. Then we're going to give it a quick stir just to break the surface tension. We're going to put on our lid and we're going to wait about 15 minutes. So I let the seeds soak for about 15 minutes. And when I looked inside, I noticed that most of the seeds were floating. And seeds that float normally do not germinate. Now it's not a hard, fast rule, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb. So I scooped the floating ones out and I added some new ones and kept doing that until most of them sank to the bottom. Now you'll notice it's about 9:30 at night, and there is a reason for that. I'll get to that in a minute. Also, I'm recording this on January 2nd. There's a reason for this as well. So it takes about 3 months to go from seed to a plant that's big enough to plant outside. And here in the desert, our last frost date is early April. So if we plant in early January, the timing works out perfectly. Now, as for being 9 o'clock at night, the reason I did that is because when we had our 80-degree tea solution here that we're soaking our seeds in, we want to let them soak for about 24 hours. And there's probably a lot of different ways you could do that. We want to keep them between 70 and 85 degrees for the best chance to germinate. Now, like I said, there's probably lots of ways to do it, but the way I've been doing it is I have a coffee mug warmer here. So I started this process at about 9 o'clock, and about midnight when I go to bed, I'm going to plug this in and turn it on the low setting. Now, I've already tested this. The low setting will keep it right about 80 degrees, which is perfect. So if you have one, be sure to check it first. If it's too hot, you're just going to cook the seeds and that will ruin them. So you don't want to do that. So I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to go to bed. It's going to bring it up to 80 degrees. Now these things always have a safety feature, so they turn themselves off after a few hours. So by the time I wake up in the morning, it'll probably be room temperature. So I'm going to unplug it to reset it, plug it back in, go to work, come home, same thing, it's going to be room temperature. I'm going to unplug it, plug it back in, and then by the time it starts to cool off again, guess what? It'll be 9 o'clock at night again, and it'll be soaking for 24 hours. And this will really help the seeds germinate. Now you may wonder, why? Why does that work? It's not like Mother Nature gives pepper seeds chamomile tea every spring. Well, sort of. What a lot of people know that birds like to eat seeds, but what they often don't know is birds can't taste capsaicin, and that's the chemical in hot peppers that make them hot. So birds like to eat these seeds, but pepper seeds are very thick, so they don't digest when a bird eats them. It just passes through their system. However, passing through the system softens the seed. And that's what we're doing here. We're sort of mimicking what happens in nature when a bird eats it. It'll pass through their system, it softens it, comes out the other end, it's more likely to germinate. So what we're doing here is simply softening up the seed, making it more likely to germinate. So I'm going to let this sit for 24 hours, and we'll come back when we're ready to plant. So my pepper seeds have been soaking in a warm, diluted tea solution for 24 hours. Once that was up, I took them out and I planted them in this 72 cell seed starting tray. Now, if you're not sure how that's done, I did a whole video on that yesterday. I'll put a link to it down below and you can watch that. There are some good tips and tricks for beginners. But for everybody else, I'm sure you know how to plant seeds in a tray. It's pretty simple. So I've put it to the right. Now, to the left, this is the tomato tray that we did yesterday. It's underneath this towel, of course. The towel helps keep the seeds dark and warm. So the same thing, I'm going to fold the towel over to cover over the pepper tray as well. Tuck it in nice and tight, and the towel will help keep the seeds dark and help keep them warm. And of course, remember, there is a heat mat underneath there which will bring heat up from the bottom. The towel will help keep it in. Now, most seeds need to be kept between 60 and 85 degrees, but peppers need a little warmer, between 70 and 85 degrees. So in addition to the heat mat and the towel, I've also put this emergency blanket over the top of my grow lights. Now, it's an emergency rescue blanket. It's 160 by 210 centimeters. I bought it online. It was only a few bucks. It's gold on one side, silver on the other. And I'm just going to create a tent. So now that heat is going to be trapped in there, and it's going to keep it a little bit warmer, and that's important for the peppers. I also have this thermostat or thermometer here that I'm going to keep inside, and every once in a while I'll check to make sure it's the proper temperature. If it's of course too hot, I can take the blanket off. If it's too cold, then you're probably going to have to turn the heat up in the house, or maybe consider putting a some sort of heater, like a space heater, in the room. Other than that, there isn't really much to do. Just check the water every so often. Do not let that tray dry out. If it does, immediately add warm water. And as soon as the seeds start to break the surface of the soil, you're going to take the towel off. I'm going to turn the grow lights on, and I'm going to bring the grow lights down until they're just above the dome, and set it to go off for 16 hours, off for 8. That should be it. I'm going to make another video is when the little seedlings begin touching the top of the tray or the top of the dome. That's when you take the dome off, and there's a few other things we do at that time, and I'll make another video then. So I hope to see you then. Please like and subscribe.